right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Sacred Light Wellness Podcast. I am with Marsha from My Nika Life. And Marsha is a psychic medium and intuitive life coach and has been working with people for over 20 years doing this. So I am going to give the floor to Marsha in just a moment. But today we're going to talk about stepping into your authentic self so that you can live a life, a reality that you truly desire to live, one that the foundation is based on authenticity, where your free will is actually yours and not given to others through these various circumstances that Marsha's going to talk about today. So without further ado, Marsha, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Absolutely. I'll do my best. There's so many things that I do, I don't know where to start. Being a mom is like probably one of the major things, right? The
Mhm.
reason I start with that is because I want people to understand that we have all these labels, but it's really hard to define when you're talking about your soul. There's so many layers and there's so many things that uh, define who we are. And have you ever noticed when you meet somebody, the first thing they do is tell you what they do, like for a living, how they make their money. There's so much more to people than that. And as I've been doing readings, I'm trying to help people understand exactly that, because I want them to feel empowered from a core place, from their God center, if you will. And so what I do is, I suppose, just naturally activate like this kind of inspiration that's already within people through connecting with their guides, with their loved ones who've passed, through source, through their higher selves, and just help to navigate, I suppose, what it is they need to do to live their best life. Um, I kind of, I don't know if navigate's the right word, because literally we already all know what we need to do. It's just trusting that. And I think sometimes when we have somebody who can, oh my gosh, my ears are ringing, buzzing, there's all this energy coming in. Woo! But when we really align with our a higher frequency, if you will, it is very easy, if we practice, to find what it is that drives you, that just sets your soul on fire. And that's essentially what I do. So I don't know if there's one label, or a label for that, but yes, I am sensitive to energy, have been that way, well, probably my whole life. But I mean, I really started to recognize this about 20 years ago, a little over 20 years. Somebody gave me a book and said, here, I think you're supposed to have this. It wasn't even anyone I knew that well, which is, I don't know, God has a funny way of doing things. Uh, it was a book by Sylvia Brown. I just love her.
Mhm. Yeah.
She's, I don't know if anyone doesn't know who she is, she's a psychic medium. She used to be on a talk show every Wednesday. I would be like, all right. Oh, I loved her.
Yeah.
After I'd read this book, I loved her. I've always been interested in the paranormal, always been interested in, you know, any of those types of things. I remember, you know, watching Crossing Over with John Edwards, like when you had to have a certain channel and be there at a certain time. We didn't have anything to record it. I went over to my neighbor's house because she had the channel and we used to watch it together. Like, oh, it was such a treat. But after that, no, fast forward to the book, and it just really opened me up to, gee, I think I'm intuitive. I think I might be psychic. Because all of the things that she's listing about herself, I'm like, I can relate to that. I can relate to that. And essentially, though, I want to just pause for a moment, because I want everyone to know that everyone's intuitive. People are intuitive to different degrees or in different ways. But it's important for us all to know that that is innately a part of who we are. We're all intuitive. I have worked really hard to work this muscle, per se, and get good at really being able to read the signs and trust the signs. And so after that book, and after that, just kind of played around with it. I remember going into chat rooms at the time when there were chat rooms to practice my intuition. There'd be somebody else on the other side of the laptop, and I'd be like, okay, you have blonde hair and a blue shirt, and we would go back and forth. And what was great about it is I didn't care if I was wrong, because it's not like they could see me. And so it was a really great way to kind of work my way into that, and started to realize, wow, I'm really good at this when I'm trusting myself. And I lived in a small town, so I kept it to myself. I remember being at a party once, and I said to someone, hey, I might have had a few to drink. This is not the way to deliver messages from spirit, by the way, but this is one of the first times I remember doing it. I'm like, hey, she's sitting next to me. I'm like, your mom says it's okay you weren't there when she died. And this woman just started crying, or maybe it was her grandma. I don't remember, but she started crying, and I was like, okay. And I walked away like, what? Like, but that I delivered the message. And it was, so it took me quite a few years to finally hone in on it, utilize it. By the grace of God, I met my very best friend when I worked at a rehab center for teenagers. Went upstairs to hand off the kids to her. She was night staff, I was day. And lo and behold, she's sitting there reading a book, and guess what? Sylvia Brown. I was like, oh, I like this girl. Okay. And after that, boy, I don't know, a bunch of stuff happened to me. I lost my mom, and then 3 months later, my husband left, and my new best friend was there for me. And she said, hey, she would come over at night, we'd have tea and things like that. And she started bringing people over with her. And she says, you know what? Do that thing that you do. Like, yeah, okay. So that's when I started actually like really working with people in person. And gosh, it was amazing. It was amazing. I absolutely loved it. It's kind of like just coming into like who I always was. And after that, well, life happens, right? I got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, so I had to move back to my small little hometown. And again, just kind of just keep it to myself, right? And I did a lot of inner work at that time. Being sick really puts you into a space where, I mean, it gives you the opportunity to really go within. Now, if you don't know anything about multiple sclerosis, it affects your nervous system. And so a lot of different ailments can happen for different people. Well, in my case, I lost my ability to walk for a while. My words would slur. I had nerve pain. It was just a whole slew of stuff. And I have the kind that it's relapse remit. So it's here, and then it slowly can get better, and you're back to normal-ish, kind of. And you have to watch your body. You have to pay attention to your body so that you don't go back into another relapse. And so I got really good at paying attention to my body. That is one of the keys to intuition. Whether you feel things through your body's like this, just it's this huge antenna in regards to energy, right? So so that was very helpful. And years later, I was just finishing up my master's degree and working on my thesis. My best friend, same one, she had her doctorate, so she was helping me write the paper. Okay, she wasn't helping me. She was helping to edit the paper I was writing. No, she wasn't writing it. I earned that degree, darn it. Anyway, what happened was she says, hey, we're going to take a minute. We're going to take a break. You're going to do a group reading. What? Yeah, you're doing a group reading and you're going to get paid for it. Whoa, wait a minute. I don't know about that. Like, now you're putting money on it? Like, I have to be right?
Turn the pressure on.
Right? It's so much pressure. And I was a single mom. I'm like, all right, I'll do it. I need the funds. I'm a student. I'm a single mom. Like, anyway, whew, I show up. There's 20 people at this house. And I was like, oh my, how the heck am I going to do this? Whew. So I went upstairs. I was into Esther Hicks at the time. I still love her, but law of attraction, and all that. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna put an Esther Hicks meditation about well-being. I listened to that sucker beforehand. I'm like, all right, I'm all squared away. I can go down there. I'm gonna do this. And I went down and I read for all 20 people. Now I gotta tell you, even now, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. I was there for a while. That was a pivotal moment because after that, the referrals just continued to come in. And I was working a full-time job after that. And I was also doing readings on weekends and nights. And 3 years later, well, quit my job. And now here I am. Things are evolving. I don't just talk to, I'm going to say, quote, dead people. I really, like I had explained in the first place, like I really feel like it'll go into a realm of even the people who've passed away want you to live your best life. And it always kind of peters back to, how can you live your life fully? Like, we want you to live your life as fully as you possibly can, because you're only here for a short moment of time. Like, in their time, it's like, I always try to, people ask me, do my loved ones miss me? I'm like, well, let's imagine that you're both still alive and that you ran to the grocery store. Does your person miss you when you ran to the grocery store? Probably not, like, the time is so fast. Like, that's even too long of a time compared to like what spirit has showed me in regards to our lives. Just a blip. And so essentially, no, they don't. But I can't just say that. Anyway, I might have answered and said way too much, but that's that. So
No, that was wonderful. It was really interesting how spirit always brings to you what you need at a time that you least expect. That's something that I've learned over the past 10 years.
right.
It's always when you don't feel quite ready for it in your own trusting,
Yes.
but spirit has a way of showing you that, yes, your soul trusts yourself, but your conscious mind might not because of your
100%.
ego and your fears and everything. But I'm just going to throw you into the deep end and let you see that you actually know how to swim.
I
So
know.
it was,
Right.
yeah, it was really interesting to hear your story and how everything just came together and in such a strong way. Like, it was wonderful
Mhm.
that you had a friend that really saw your beautiful gifts and was one of those friends that push you.
She did. She did. She still does, by the way. She still does. She's my number one cheerleader. And every project I'm working on, she's like, okay, here we go. Like, yeah. She said, what's great? She said that's what she thinks that her purpose is here on earth. And I was like, stop it. And she's like, no, I really feel, I mean, she has other purposes, but she said, I'm supposed to be here to push you because you and a lot of other people are going to really shift the consciousness of the world. And I was like, okay, no pressure.
Right.
Right.
No pressure. Exactly. But so how did you work through those moments of fear? Because I could imagine, especially showing up one day and then being told that you're going to do readings for 20 people and then just having all these moments that spirit brings to you where you've got your fear going on, you've got and I'm sure everybody deals with this no matter what stage in their professional development they're in
For
or
sure.
personal development, where you start feeling like a fraud, like the imposter syndrome starts setting in.
So much. Yes.
It really doesn't matter whether you have 50 years experience, 10
Doesn't
years
matter.
experience,
Mm-mm.
everybody feels like that from one time or another,
Yes.
especially doing the work that you do because you're connecting on such a deep personal level.
Mm-hmm.
How did you work through those fears? And then now, do you still have some of those fears come up and how do you work through them now as opposed
So,
to the beginning?
right. So in the past, I'm actually having to think back, like, how did I deal with that? Ever since I was very tiny little, listen, I don't always talk in like proper English, by the way. I've had a faith, and it's not based on religion. Um, Not that there's anything wrong with religion, but my faith, I've always had this inner knowing. And I can recall the first time that I had that at the age of like, I think it was 4. My dog got poisoned by the neighbors and died. And I knew my dog was okay. Like I just knew. And it was, I would dance and sing and go outside and dance and sing around where my dog was buried. Like I recall this and like picking flowers and singing to my dog that wasn't, I don't know. Anyway, it's just been an inner knowing. And for me, and for the audience, though, even if it's not an inner knowing that you're aware of, your soul is. And I always have to take myself back to that because guess what? When I did this the first time, I didn't remember back to that. Like that wasn't the first thing that popped into my head. I'm just saying, like, I knew it was there after much reflection. Okay. But in regards to, I obviously environment, how you grow up, like is going to have an effect on how willing you are to push yourself, right? Like, I mean, we were just told you just do it. You just do it. Like you have to. But I I think for me, and I don't know if this is going to work for everyone else in the beginning anyway, I would think, what's the worst case scenario? Can I live with that? Yeah, I'd get past that. I can get over that. All right, let's try it then. And I know that probably isn't the healthiest way to go about it, but that would literally be it. Like, okay, I go down there, these 20 people, and I look at them, and if I say, oh, I got nothing, okay, then we're probably going to eat some food, have some laughs, and I'm going to go back and work on my paper. Right? I mean, what's the worst thing? They could laugh at me and be like, oh my God. But no, I always feel like I'm surrounded. And I feel like if you know that you're supported, I knew backstory a little bit. The girl who hosted the get together was my best friend's sister-in-law. Okay, her husband's sister. And throughout the years, unbeknownst to me, or I didn't remember, Steph, my best friend, she would ask me questions. Hey, Jamie wants to know if she's gonna have a boy or a girl. Jamie wants to know if she's pregnant. Jamie, anyway. So I think she's 2 or 3 kids, but I would predict each kid, the sex. I even predicted like some unfortunate things with, anyway. So she recalled this. She remembered this. She was like already a fan or whatever, and so she had faith in me, and I knew Jamie was a good person, and I knew that she was going to be acquainted with other decent people that weren't going to like laugh at me and throw rotten tomatoes at me or whatever. And so that helped, but that's not always a scenario. We don't always know we're in a safe space, and there's been those cases too. Believe me, I've done a lot of readings, a lot of group readings where I'm going into somebody's home. I know nobody. Like, you don't know what you're going to get. And I do a lot of talking to God, source, guides, whatever, spirit team. It's a leap of faith. I can't say that there's an easy answer, but it's always paid off, and it always works out no matter what. And I've had a few people, actually, I think I've had maybe 4 people that I've looked at them and I've been like, yep, I got nothing. Like there was nothing. And I don't know why. Is it because they weren't able to receive, or I wasn't able to? I don't. But the thing is that it is what it is. As long as you're truthful in regards to that. I did reading for a gal last week, and this doesn't happen very much, but I got a few things for her, but not what she wanted. And I was like, sorry, like the person that she wanted to come through didn't come through, or so she thinks. I feel like maybe I don't. Anyway, sometimes the message just isn't able to come across the way. It wasn't right. Maybe it wasn't the right timing. Perhaps there's always an answer for everything. So having trust, I'm going to go to this. Trust in what the universe has for you. Know that you are your own creator, though, and you have a choice in how your creation looks, how your life looks. But always trust that there's going to be a bigger plan to whatever. Either A, you're going to learn from something, or you're going to grow, or, it's going to lead you to the next thing. It's
Mhm.
kind of like when somebody says, oh man, I didn't get that house that I really wanted, somebody else bought it. And you're like, well, and okay, there's probably something better coming for you. And what do you know? Something comes along, they're like, gosh, glad I didn't get that other one. I got this one for a much better deal, or whatever, you see? So versus that would be how I had to do it. I was really like jumping off the high dive and hoping that you remember how to swim when you get down there. Like, it's so important for you to have faith, though. And I think that building your practice and what we talked about, like listening to your body, like practicing your intuition, really coming from a place of love instead of fear. That's a whole other topic, but fear is like a really big fear, guilt, shame. Any of those things can really kind of put the fire out a little bit, and so it's important to step away and it's not always easy, but kind of like come into that observer's perspective when you're doing these types of things.
Mhm.
um but in regards to me now, you were gonna laugh so hard, but I am still in shock all the time when I give messages and they're like, yes, it's this, and I'm like, oh really? Like, not
It
not
doesn't
because
go away, no matter how
no, it
many
doesn't.
times you do readings,
Not.
how many years, that does not go away because you're
Mm-mm,
going in essentially blind. Like you don't
yeah.
know these people, you don't know
Mm-hmm,
anything about them, you don't do research on them, you just have a meeting set,
yeah,
their
right.
first name, and then
Yep.
you're just going blind.
And yeah, that's how it goes, man. And it's interesting is I'll call my my sister. She comes to a lot of my events and stuff with me, and I'll be like, whoa, did you see that? Like, did you see how that happened? She's like, yeah, it was really cool. And I'm like, wow. So I'm not making all this up. And she's like, well, if you are, you're really freaking good at it. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know how that. Nope, I'm not that creative. Not in that way. I cannot. There's no way. Some of the things you're like, it wouldn't even matter if I was making it up. There is no way I would know those details specifically.
Yeah.
And so I love spirit, and I'm so thankful to be in the position where I can receive. It's but I never want to give the power just to me, because I know everybody has the ability to receive,
Mhm.
and yeah, it's quite phenomenal, really,
Yeah,
learning this whole new realm, versus what we were taught and programmed to think in the beginning.
exactly. And I think that's one of the things that is one of the hardest journeys for people to go through when they're growing up, when they're developing their abilities, when they
Mhm.
feel and sense this internal voice trying to
Yes.
guide them. It's always in conflict with what we were programmed when we were growing up from our teachers, from our parents, important people in our lives, and even just subtle programming from society as a whole. Like if
Mm.
you're at the store, for example, the other day we had a play date and we went to Urban Air. It's a trampoline park.
Mhm. Mhm.
And there was a kid there. There was an incident. It wasn't a purposeful incident, but there's this balance beam where two kids, one was older and the other was younger.
Mhm.
They matched up because they were just, that's how it happened. They were in line and randomly got matched up and they were playing. And one of them, instead of falling into the foam pits, he kind of fell half in the foam pit and half on the wall that had padding. But it was the younger kid. The younger kid got hurt. And, the mother, of course, being Mama Bear, came in to try to protect her child and kind of yelled at the other kid, but though it was unintentional. But it's moments like that that show you that that was a small moment, that wasn't
Mm,
someone he knew, that wasn't parents, teachers, anybody. It was just society, a small
mm,
moment.
mm-hmm.
But you could tell from the look on that kid's face, because he didn't intentionally do it, that
No.
that moment is going to program him into fear of doing maybe anything in life, because he's going to be afraid of unintentional consequences when he had good intentions, but unaware of who might be around to see what's going on,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
what kind of consequences that would have for him. And that
Right.
would really stop someone being able to really step into any opportunities or anything
Right.
just out of fear. So that's just talking about an insignificant
Right.
situation with people. But we're surrounded by parents and teachers and important people in our lives on a daily basis growing up. And
Mm-hmm.
everything that they believe, their traumas, their generational traumas, and
Mm-hmm.
their fears are all pushed down onto you and kind of
Right.
try to stuff you into a mold. And that affects whether you trust yourself to let go.
Mm-hmm.
But that's one of the biggest things I've seen over the years working with people, is that they need to unlearn all of
Yep.
the programmed shit that they learned growing up.
That's exactly it.
And once
So,
they step into that knowing,
mm-hmm.
it's like a light switch goes off and magic starts happening.
I know, right? The best. That is the best. To be able to witness that, that's
Mhm.
my favorite. It is honestly my very favorite thing to see. I
And
love
it's a
it.
powerful thing that you do, because I know there are some people who are very drawn to the paranormal because, as intuitive and spiritual beings, we know that there's more beyond the physical world.
Correct.
And there are those who are more skeptical, and there's a couple categories, right? There's people that are skeptical because of all the programming they've been in, and they've been told this isn't real, or this is
Mm-hmm.
demonic, or this is whatever. So it
Right.
pushes them into this block.
Yes.
And those tend to be the major categories that I see between people. They're either really interested in the whole paradigm of the spiritual unknown world, or they're so afraid of it because they've been told it's not okay,
Right.
it's not real.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, there's a magic in stepping into a meeting with a psychic medium. If you're on the fence, or even for those that aren't willing to be open to it, because once
Mm-hmm.
they hear these things, once they hear the messages that come through, you're right, there's no refuting it. Because like I said, you go in blind, so there's that element that takes out the skepticism for them. There's no one
Right.
to have fed you information, because it's just you and them.
I know. And some people are like, oh, you must have looked at their Facebook. I'm like, their Facebook does not talk about the things that I talk about. First of all, we talk about things that are very private a lot of times, and people aren't going to post those things. And if they do, I don't have time to read people's Facebooks, nor am I going to even remember. By the way, I'm really bad with names, faces. Like that would be impossible, especially when it's group setting. Like, come on, really? Do you think I have it written on my hand or something? Like, no.
Exactly. Well, and a lot of times when you're doing events,
Mm.
you don't know anybody. They just
Nobody.
walk up to your table, sit down, and there you go.
There
And
you
then
are.
scheduling in person or in virtual events,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you literally just get an email notification, somebody booked on
Yep.
your site, and this is the time that you booked.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's a powerful thing. And it really helps break down those walls that people.
Yes, I agree. And we've psychic psychic medium has been given such a terrible, name or reputation. And so I am almost always like, ugh, is that what I want to call myself? Ugh, ugh. Like I don't, there's no woohoo in my world. Like if anyone was going to be, I don't know, skeptical of it, like I don't, I mean, yes, I've always been sensitive to energy, but I want people to understand that energy is science too. People don't understand that. Like that's a real freaking thing. there's no disputing that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I can't, I enjoy the people that come in that say, you know what, I don't understand this, but I'm open and I want to learn more. And that kind of energy is really easy to work with. By the way, have you ever found working with somebody who is skeptical? A lot of times, like my guides are like, no, like I don't know. I'm not here to prove myself to anybody. I mean, I will. They have to at least be open. They can be skeptical, but they have to be open. Otherwise, I'll have a really hard time, like, or maybe it's just because I don't want to. Like, when you're ready, I will be here. But if they're skeptical and closed off, like some people like in group readings have brought their so-and-so who doesn't really want to be there, and typically I won't read for them. I mean, or I just don't get around to them.
Mm-hmm.
Or they see, usually when I do a group reading, spirit has me start off with really hard ones first, because then it opens up the rest of the group. Because if they're sitting there with that closedness, it's gonna really help. It's gonna affect the whole entire flow. But and I love that, because I don't know that they're skeptical or closed off, right? Like a lot of times, I mean, sometimes I can feel it, but so I'll just start with them. Spirit's like, they just need to know, blah, 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 blah. And then I don't know, it just shifts the whole entire room and it makes it so enjoyable. I don't know where I was going with that, other than yes, it takes some open-mindedness, I think, is the easiest way for us to be able to read. And being considered a psychic medium, people can have a woo-woo like type of concept in regards to that, but it literally is just about being able to receive energy and translate it. That's
Mm-hmm.
all it is. The medium, it's like a phone is a medium to communication. We're basically the phone. Like, here's the information. And a lot of times, have you ever noticed, we don't know what it means. We're just giving you what we're getting. Like, and then I've always find that sometimes it's even better to do it that way than me translating or trying to figure out what it means and then tell them. Because a lot of times when I do that, I'm wrong about how I'm translating the information. One time I said to someone, oh, your grandpa must have been a farmer. And they said, no. And I said, well, are you sure? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, he's showing me like a John Deere tractor. And they're like, oh yeah, I used to collect little John Deere tractors. See? So sometimes we can't, yeah, it's always it's every time is different too, which is amazing. And every energy is different. And did I say this? I don't know if I said this already, but different spirits communicate differently. I've had spirits that come through, they're really good with words. Like I can just hear what they're telling me and I will tell them. Some spirits communicate through emotion. Some spirits communicate through pictures. Some spirits communicate through, like physical feelings. Like every spirit is different. I love, love, love when I get those ones that are super like, it's really, really good at communicating. And I'm like, here it is, but sometimes I got to kind of pull it in and like kind of figure it out. Maybe they're newer to the other side. Maybe, that's not their strength is it takes a lot for the spirit to be able to come down, because I have to raise my energy. They have to lower theirs for us to meet. Right. So maybe it's almost like talking to someone from across the room, for some of them are able to get really super close and be able to have that conversation. So there are so many different, factors to how a reading can go, but I do love the ones that can communicate well, just because it's so much fun, to be able to deliver those messages. There was one time, this is one of my favorites. I mean, there's a lot, but I was doing a group reading and somebody said, okay, there was one in there. He's a little bit skeptical, super fun though, but a little bit skeptical. And he's like, yeah, well, if he's here, what did he call people? Oh God, really? Like, okay, let's see if I can. I just kind of, okay. Felt like I was like, Rocky getting ready for, anyway. So I looked at him and I said, Beanhead? And the whole room just, like that was what he called people. Like, how the heavens would I know that? Hmm?
Mm.
Like, you wouldn't. Who does that? Who, where? Anyway, that was so fun. But that's for the ones that can communicate well, then that's easy. And I have know if you found this, but I find that people who communicate well in life typically communicate really well on the other side as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's really interesting because everybody has certain clair abilities. And
Mm.
I think that's our translation module,
Mm-hmm.
is how we translate the information being brought to us from spirit and source.
Yeah.
And everybody, no matter what level you're on in your psychic abilities or in your intuitive ability, any of that stuff, everybody has clair abilities and they just don't realize it. It's the way
Right.
that your soul translates and listens to the universe and the
Mm-hmm.
frequencies around you. So some people would attribute this to intuition, and some people would just attribute it to a gut feeling or just, I don't know, a knowing. That's how I
Mm-hmm.
describe it. But that's all part of clair abilities.
Yes.
People just aren't aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting that you talk about how people on the other side, spirits on the other side, have a certain way of communicating, whether it's through visuals, it's through auditory messages, energetic, physical feelings, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has a certain clair ability that they're strongest into.
Yes.
So I wonder how that comes in to play. Because if you have someone who, let's say, is a very good communicator with words and they're giving you auditory messages, and your clair abilities, let's say your strongest clair ability is through physical
Clairvoyance. Oh, okay.
clairvoyance.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we'll do clairvoyance. So through clairvoyance, where you see images and this knowing,
Mm-hmm.
how does that affect the translation? Or does it come in, since that is your translation module, do their words come in and play like a movie?
Ah, you know what? I just got the chills when you said that last part. So I'm assuming that that probably is what it is. So
Okay.
I think my strongest clair is clairsentient, like just knowing. Um, and I like to explain to people that once you kind of really work that muscle and learn that knowing, then the other ones will follow suit. Like they all come in. Once you're getting one muscle worked, it's just kind of like working out. You work your core, and then it works. You can work other things as well. The stronger the core is, the easier it is to. Why am I talking about working out? I need to do it. Is that why? I don't know, but
Well, it
um,
very much it matches because it is
yeah,
like it's your energetic body's muscles.
it
So it is
is.
like working out. Because I know, for me, it started out with one,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that was the clairvoyance.
Mm-hmm.
And as you start leaning into it and it becomes stronger, it's like a spider web. All of
Yes.
your arms start coming out and it creates this stable foundation for how you operate. And sorry, my dog just walked in. But and then when you start to question that one thread, it tugs all the other threads. So then it's like this whole ecosystem of your energy body just gets
Mm-hmm.
thrown off and strained. But once you lean into it, then the next arm will come in. And then next thing you know, you're not just operating from this one framework, from this
Mm-hmm.
one reality. It's, when I do my readings, I tell everybody I get all of my readings through, or my messages through auditory, visual, energy,
Mm-hmm.
physical sensations. So I'm going to tell you what I feel, what I see, what I hear, and the physical sensations. And so like once you develop everything, it's just this barrage of information coming in
It
multiple
sure is.
ways.
Yes.
And then it's your responsibility to translate all of that. But you have to trust to translate it. Because sometimes, like I
Oh,
said,
yeah.
you go in blind and you're telling someone, you're like, whoa, what the hell's going on with your shoulder? Like,
Right.
there was this time where I was giving this woman a reading. She came to my table at a vendor fair,
Mm-hmm.
and it was her and three of her, or two daughters and one of their friends. So
Mm-hmm.
everybody wanted to sit around and watch, and I was doing the reading for her. She was about maybe 80, 85 years old, and I was giving her a reading. It was very much about a man, their relationship.
I could feel that. I was like, oh, he's cute. Anyway.
And then it was a sad kind of a reading, and I asked her in the middle of it, my shoulder started to hurt, excruciating pain, like it was dislocated. And I
Mm-hmm.
had stopped mid-sentence, and I asked her, I was like, what happened with your shoulder? Are you experiencing shoulder pain with this individual? Like, what happened that your shoulder hurts so much? And her daughter immediately shot her face over, and her mom looked at her and started crying. And she's like, tell her, tell her what happened. And apparently, her late husband had ripped her arm out of its
Oh
socket.
my
And,
God.
he wasn't a very kind gentleman at times when he was
Yeah.
here, but those are very painful moments. Those are very raw moments. And that's just one thing. I was seeing the images of things, I was hearing things, but then the
Mm-hmm.
physical aspect starts coming in.
Yeah.
And
No,
so,
that's definitely not the energy I was feeling. I was feeling this very kind man next to her, but I
well,
felt like it was more.
she had
Mhm.
actually been married a couple of times, and they
Okay. Because
all passed away, and one of them was very loving. It was the first gentleman that came in, and he was a very loving individual, one that
I
was
didn't,
always
oh,
there.
yeah,
And
I felt the first one. Oh,
yeah, and then the
yes.
second
Oh
one,
my
I was like, oh my god.
man. Okay. So it's stuff like that. That's just, isn't that amazing that spirit will show you that? But it's also to instill and help her not only maybe physically heal, but like mentally, like heal, emotionally
Yes,
heal from that.
yes, because it had happened many years
Years. Yeah.
prior, but
Hmm.
the pain was still there because she hadn't healed emotionally and mentally
That's what I
from
was saying.
it. So
Yeah. I felt like
when
it was she was holding it there. Hmm.
absolutely. And so like the reading, when he came through, this her reading was very long. But when he came through, and we were discussing all of the things, the messages that he had for her was that he was very sorry for
Hmm.
the way that they interacted, because
Hmm.
he was operating from a place of extreme childhood traumas,
Right. Right.
and he wasn't able to, even though he was consciously aware
Right.
of the moments, he wasn't able to express what he was feeling and what he truly wanted to be in this life because of the constant internal conflict that was going on. So, she had always took it into herself. She said that she was just not a good wife, that she tried her hardest, but she must have done something wrong
Oh my
to
goodness.
create this, the anger in him and caused him to drink and all this stuff. And the release that she got, and
Oh,
the healing that
Diana.
her daughters got to hear that their father, because they were wondering, why was he like this? And he
Right.
said it had nothing to do with you, that unfortunately you were just in the line of fire, and
Right.
he didn't mean to hurt anybody.
Right.
But even though he was aware that his
Yeah.
behavior was hurting people, he didn't
Hmm.
know anything else, because that's how his father treated his mother, his father treated him, and the grandfather, and so forth. It was very generational.
Hmm.
And, that healing that was able to happen because he connected from the other side to say, I'm sorry, it had nothing to do with you. And I'm so
Hmm.
sorry that you suffered, because I couldn't face my own traumas and I couldn't figure out how to do things differently. But
Yeah.
that one of his messages is
Yes.
figure out how to face what you're going through and
Right.
do things differently so that you don't end
Yes.
up hurting people like I did.
That's amazing. Yes, I actually have had very many similar themes in relationships where that the person who passed maybe wasn't such a good person in life, and them coming back to say, well, they're sorry, or, it's definitely about the generational trauma. That's a big theme. But also, I don't know if you have gotten this a lot, but I have, is like saying, we planned this before life, and that I would play this character in your life. And what you will see a lot of times is the person that you're reading for, or maybe in your case, it was the daughter's, the curse is being broken. The curse is being broken by acknowledging this. But they're usually healers, teachers. They've gone through all of these experiences to be able to help others because of these experiences. And so there is an apology on the level of the soul being like, I'm so sorry that hurt. But and then also on one other side of like, well, we chose this together. I know that this seems, and sometimes that's a really hard thing to be able to tell people, because they're gonna be like, I did what? No, I didn't. I wouldn't do that. Like, well, we choose sometimes to have this contrast in our lives, A, to know what real beauty and love is because we felt the opposite of that, and B, because it's going to be able to help us to really raise the vibration and the frequency of Earth due to our learning and growing from this experience. Whether we share and help others because of it isn't, I mean, that is part of it, but also it is about your personal healing, because we're all connected. If you can heal, it heals all of consciousness. So I always love to be able to explain that to people. So much healing going on, especially within the last few years. I have seen such a huge, like, bringing up all this old shit to like really like purge, because we are transitioning into this new realm. It is so necessary for us to let go of all that 3D stuff, and or whatever you want to call it. It's just it's human things that we are no longer in need of. We're not, I this is my own personal opinion. I don't feel like we're going to live from a karmic debt energy or vibration anymore. It is really about us rising above that and living from a space of like heaven on earth, really is what I'm feeling. And humanity is coming together slowly but surely. There may be seeming like a lot of chaos going on within the next year or two, but it's again essential for the revolution per se.
Absolutely.
I don't know,
Absolutely. No, and it's very powerful. It's interesting that you said, I mean, because we all get the same messages,
yeah.
as light workers. And,
Mm-hmm.
I had a astral projection experience where I ended up in a different timeline, but also a different world when I would ask them, what year is it?
Mm-hmm.
Because, I told them where I was from and what year it was and stuff. I asked
Mm-hmm.
them, I was like, well, what year is it for you guys? Like, where are you? You know,
Mm-hmm.
so they said, all right, Bellatrix. And I had never heard Bellatrix. I was like, no, like
No,
what
like,
time is it here?
right.
And they're like, we call it Bellatrix. And so I was doing some research, and the references that was coming up was talking about Bellatrix. It was like the third brightest star in the Orion system. And as soon as I saw that, immediately I heard a message coming in that they translate their time based off of the solar transitions that are happening around their planet. And
Mm.
it was a very powerful, and I just got goosebumps everywhere. But it was really interesting. But one of the conversations that we had there, when I told them I'm from, at the time it was 2023, and they started laughing, and I was like, what's so funny? And they're like, oh, we've heard all about that. We don't talk about the years 2024 and 2025 in your world. And I'm like, what?
I know, I feel it.
Exactly. And so that's like all of this chaos. It's very scary, I know, for a lot of people, but that's part of what is going to be a catalyst for
Mm-hmm.
this final transition period, because we are very much going into this heaven on earth. And what exactly is heaven on earth? It is this going back to natural state, right?
Correct.
Because as a spiritual being,
Mhm.
we are energetic cosmic beings. Okay. We
Yes.
are all connected. We are all one.
Hmm.
And this heaven on earth goes directly back to creation. So when we visualize, and those visualizations are connected to our energetic emotions,
Right.
magic happens. And that is when we express and see in the physical world what we were imagining and feeling and living into internally. So, heaven
Yes.
and earth is the manifestations of your true desires.
Correct.
So, it's very important that we're mindful of how healthy our thought processes are
So important.
and how healthy our physical body is and our energetic health as well. Because if we visualize something, but we can't step into the emotional aspect of it,
Hmm.
it comes out distorted.
Yes.
So then we're like, well,
Yep.
I kind of, why did this happen in my life? Because I kind of asked for this, but I didn't intend for it to end up like this.
Right. Right.
That's because you were only stepping into one part of the equation, and
Right.
the other part of the equation was distorted or manipulated because of the traumas, because of the fears, because of the whatever you were feeling
Yes.
that tied in. Instead, we have to match the visual with the emotions. And then our breath is the quantum coding that puts it out into the universe and manifests the desires that we truly intend to live.
Right.
Once you step into this energetic alignment, mind, body, spirit alignment,
Yes.
your whole life changes.
So much.
So
So much.
it is in a long-winded explanation of what heaven on earth is for the listeners that don't know. That's the process. It's saying that our reality is actually going to be a true reflection,
Hmm.
because our reality up until this point has been a manipulated version of not our desires, but of the elite's desires, those in power that have spent so much time, money, and energy in affecting the way that we think, affecting the way
Hmm.
we feel,
Hmm.
therefore making sure that what we're coding into existence, into the universe, comes out manipulated, because then that manipulation is more fuel for the
Hmm.
type of reality and dynamic that allows them to stay in control and in power. And I'm just going to leave it at that because the shivers are really strong. So just kidding. But so that's essentially what everybody wants to do,
Hmm.
to get to this heaven on earth.
Yes, absolutely. And I've had people asking, okay, but what about the people that what about my husband? He doesn't really believe in all this. How's that going to work for him? And I'm like, well, it depends on where his energy is at. I don't know if it necessarily has to be that same, everybody has the same belief, but energetically, you have to be in a space of love. And uh, I mean, listen, we're human and we can't stay energetically in that space at all points in time. But I really feel like this heaven on earth is kind of like one of those, it's going to be where you're able to maintain that longer. You're able to maintain that longer. And I think we have to start practicing it now so that we can shift into it. It's going to make
Mhm.
it easier. And so it takes mindfulness. It takes, like you said, treating your body right, and to self-care and really just getting into that space of love. And when I say space of love, I'm really talking about living from a place of inspired action, inspiration, not obligation, um, surrounding yourself with support, with energy and people and environments that are pleasing to you. If you ever feel like you're in a place where those things aren't true or aren't happening, figuring out how you can take small steps to be in that place where you want to be. I always feel like it's important to say, because you will have people say that's impossible because I'm stuck because of A, B, and C. And, let's say their health. My health is this way, and so I can't ever be in a place where I feel like that. I beg to differ with that. And I know, especially for those that have chronic pain, that can be a really, really, really hard place to go into, a place of love when you're freaking pain all the time, but that pain comes from somewhere. And so that says to me, okay, we need to go within, because there's some things that need to be healed. And yes, your body may be screaming at you and you're like, no, I have this, there's no way. Well, if you think there's no way, then there's no way. You have to open your mind and say, I am willing to be open-minded to being able to heal what is happening in my heart and in my thoughts and in my emotions, to be able to help my body come into a new energetic form.
Mm-hmm.
I am saying this from a place of experience. Having multiple sclerosis, I have had to do a lot of shifting of my thoughts and of my emotions. I thought I was never going to be able to run again, because for the longest time, I'm still not like the best runner, but I can finally do it again. And I'm always saying I'm rewiring my brain so that I can be able to function, at my optimal, and I believe, because health can be a really huge barrier. There could be mental health, there can be health, there could be jobs, there could be people. It doesn't matter what it is. There's always a way to shift out of that. And sometimes what it takes, and this is what I tell my clients, because they're like, I don't know how. And I says, you don't need to know how. You don't need to know how. What you need to know is, I says, how do you want to feel? I want to feel free. I want to feel good. I want to have energy. Do you see what I mean? And I said, okay, so let's concentrate on that. Let's just sit in a moment in this space right now. And I want you to feel free. And I want you to feel happy. And I want you to feel, you just have to, breath is so important. Breath is so key. I channel my spirit guide, who I call Chief. I don't know if I'm ever going to figure out his name, but it doesn't matter. And one of the things that he just said to me the other day, because I'm channeling for a book that I'm writing, and I said, okay, this chapter is about being in the present moment, being in the now. How the hell do we do that? Like, how do we do that when there's all these things going around and all these worries and all these, how do people do that? How do I tell people to do that? And he said, the best thing that you could do is look to nature. He said, the flower, I don't know if this is exactly, but it's something like this. The flower doesn't need to know how to grow. It just does. It trusts the sun will come out, the rain will come down, all of the elements will come together, and the flower just knows. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have a knowing, faith, going back to, the beginning of my story. And, and the seasons change, and there's so much in nature that can be reflected within our lives, for us to respect all of the things, even the chaos that goes on with, let's say, the weather, forest fires. There's new life that is brought from those as well. There is, even though it's tragic, there can be purpose with that as well, and other things like that. And so he was just going on about how, when you want to know how to live your life, and to live your life presently and in the moment, you have to be, he said something like being is doing, or something in those regards.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people think, well, what do I need to do? What's my next step? Da, 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 blah, 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 blah. And
Mm-hmm.
I understand. That's how we've been programmed.
Yeah.
And it's taking a lot of faith. I can even tell you a personal example I'm going through right at the very, very moment. Writing this book, I've had to kind of cut back on some clients, and that's the way I make my money. That's the way I live, and so having faith that there's going to be enough has really come from, like, just trusting. Because there was one day I was like, okay, I don't know. The universe just, I'm usually booked at least a month out, at least a month or two, like a month and a half, 2 months. And I went to look at my books and I was like, I have openings next week. Like what's happened? This is my like livelihood. Ah. And I hear Chief in my head. He says, do not worry today. Have fun today. Worry tomorrow. I was like, okay, yeah, I can do that for the day, but I'm worried about it tomorrow. Like I'm putting on my calendar, worry. Like I gotta figure this out. And well, every day since then, he has asked me to do the same thing. And I listen most of the time. Because whenever you try to do something from a place of fear, it's never going to be something that really thrives. When I'm coming from a place of love, if I've ever tried to make an event or do anything because I need money, because I need extra money, nope, doesn't work. It has to be because I love it. It has to be because I have passion for it. Boy, there's been things I've created because I was like, oh, this will be fun. And I was going to offer it for free, but I'm like, yeah, I'll put this on it, see what happens. Because I mean, if nobody cuts to offer it for free, because I really want to do this, but I mean, I should be paid a little bit for my time. I always had a really hard time with that, by the way. I want to give everything away for free. But I realize now that wouldn't work at the moment. Maybe one day. This heaven on earth. Actually, there's something to that I can tell you about that I've been seeing too in regards to money and stuff in the future. Those are the best turnouts when I'm just having fun. That's when I have the most reaction or the most enjoyment from the clientele, and also honestly the most abundance. And abundance doesn't always come through money. Sometimes it has to do with the connections or somebody that knows somebody that does this, blah, blah, blah. And boy, have I been abundant in that way. I really have. I am so grateful and thankful for all of my clients. I can't tell you how many connections I've made since I've decided to shift into this business. Now we can talk about like, yes, I'm an entrepreneur. Yes, I'm self-employed. That comes with benefits, but it definitely comes with a lot of stressors too. But the connections and people that I have met, boy, oh boy, I got to tell you what, I am blessed beyond measure. So many good human beings out there. So when I hear somebody complaining about the human beings on earth, I'm like, yeah, maybe you're on the wrong side of it. Because man, I see a lot of good ones. I see a lot of good ones.
Absolutely.
I know there's another side to it, but I'd rather not acknowledge that as much as I possibly can. And by the way, I just wanted to share this with you. When you were talking about when you had the astral projection and you went to that other planet, I was just messed around with my cards and this one flung out of the deck. Look what it says.
Yeah.
Like what?
Absolutely.
100%, right?
Yeah. And it's very true to the, I get people asking me like, what does astral projecting do for you? Like, why do you do it? And to be honest, it started without my intentions of doing it. A lot of people actually experience astral projections and they don't realize that they do it, but we do it every evening. Our souls don't sleep, but it's to the degree of what is your mission right now? What is your soul's mission? And what is your degree of cognitive awareness in your energetic state, not just in your physical state?
Right.
So a lot of people are able to remember these things, and I do a lot of work in the astral world because we'll dive into some of the different things later, but there's a lot of different reasons why, and one of them is because in my soul's journey and in my current lifetime where I am now, I need to have these drastic shifts in reality to understand the cosmic scope.
Right.
And some of the connections actually do connect with your physical reality now. And they're very powerful because it allows you to understand someone else, understand some things in the past that happened that might have had an unhealed aspect to it.
Right.
For instance, there was a situation where this direct alternate timeline connected with my present timeline, and it very much healed something in the past that I wasn't aware needed to be healed until I saw the connection, and I was like, holy shit. And it
Right.
completely changed my perspective. I had astral projected into an alternate timeline with my husband Scott.
Mm-hmm.
And in that timeline, he was not doing what he does now. So now he works in the cannabis industry
Mm-hmm.
and very successful in it. But in this other timeline, we were sitting down at a picnic table with some of his coworkers and friends. And then he said he had to leave and go to work now. And I was like, okay, well, I'll see you later. And I was going to leave then. And then I had the thought, I heard, no, follow him. And so I just thought, okay, I want to be where Scott's at. And immediately because when you astral project, you think and you jump.
Yeah.
So I jumped into his place of work, and I was not where I expected to be. It was a completely different um, environment. Now, they understand where he was at. They understand quantum jumping and astral projections and all of that stuff. So some of the information I can't quite get into, but when I was there, it was very much in a military type facility. One
Ah.
I had never seen in my life. My dad was in the military for 20 years. And this is not a facility that I ever would have imagined. The ground, for instance, had these black hexagons that were really small, black hexagons everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody was wearing vests with black hexagons on it. And I was looking around, I was thinking, I'm like, well, I would have imagined there to be security or something where we were at. And there were computers and all these like classified books and stuff people were working. And one of the main thoughts that came to me is, where's the security? And then I realized later they didn't need security because of these hexagon systems that they had. But I found Scott and he was very surprised to see me. He's like, what are you doing here? And so all this stuff happened. And then I had, in the middle of our conversation, I had the immediate rush of cortisol through my body. And I heard, I got to get out of here. I don't know what tripped me off because our conversation wasn't bad. It was a decent conversation, but I just had this uncomfortable feeling like I got to get out of here. And so
Mm-hmm.
I tried to run, and as soon as I tried to run, my body was thrown to the ground. It was like the ground, the hexagons could feel your heart rate and could feel the energetic frequency of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So if you weren't in a calm state, it viewed you as a threat and locked you down.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I was like, I couldn't breathe. Like it was a very physical experience. I could not breathe. I felt like I was being crushed into the ground. And then I turned my head to look behind me, and Scott was also thrown to the ground because he was trying to come after me.
Right,
And
right.
so immediately I woke up in my bed and I was panicked. I was like, oh my God, Scott, I have to go back. And I shut my eyes and immediately told myself, go back now. And it was literally that quickly. There wasn't a 7-minute period where I had to fall asleep. There wasn't a
Right.
meditation. It was immediately my consciousness shot back into my body. And when I shot back, me leaving for that short amount of time did something to my body there where the stress that I was under, all of that just seemed to have dissipated. I
Mm-hmm.
disconnected. And then Scott and I were, he pulled me up. We were able to stand, and he took me in a bookcase, like an aisle that had a bunch of books and stuff. And I looked at him and I said, what is going on here? And I want the truth. Do not lie to me. What's going on here? And so he told me that he was in secret intelligence and all this stuff, and that this was their facility. He doesn't know how I got there and all that stuff, but we had a very interesting conversation. And then that led to another interaction with a coworker that had to make sure that I was trustworthy and stuff. And that involved a bunch of tasing and stuff. It was a very uncomfortable situation. But when I came back to, my husband was at work, and I did this during the day when he was at
Mm-hmm.
work. And when he came home, I told him, I was like, I had a very scary and weird experience. And he told me, well, I told him what it was, what happened. And he looked at me and he said, Diana, do you remember when you were pregnant with our first son? That was over 17 years ago. He's like, do you remember when you were pregnant? I came home one day and told you that I had walked past a military recruitment office, and I asked you what you thought about me going and taking a test to see where I would be placed, and kind of looking into that route, because he was very much looking for a way to support the family.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I looked at him very upset, and I told him, if you join the military, I will leave you, because my dad was in the military for so long
Oh
and he
yeah.
was never home. And I want my husband to be home with us and be a part of our lives. And I told him, I was like, I will leave you if you join the military. I was like, yeah, I remember that. And he said, well, I lied to you. I didn't I didn't ask your permission. I had already gone that day before I came home. And I took the test, and they told me they wanted to put me in special, like, operations, intelligence, special intelligence, and they were going to give me a $50,000
Sign
entry
on.
sign-on
Mm-hmm.
fee for it. But they said that he could literally go wherever he wanted because of how he tested on the thing. And I was like, holy shit. I was so floored that at that moment, that was evidence and proof enough for me that I had stepped into an alternate timeline where he made the decision.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, I didn't leave him. So that tells me that, like, all of my traumas from my parents
Mm-hmm.
that was affecting my life
Right.
weren't going to affect my life. And all the
Right.
fears that I had of him not being around, we were having a picnic, we were like eating it together and enjoying life. And so it released this weight on my shoulders that I had, and this weight on his shoulders that he had, because he was always afraid, because I said that. He was,
Mm-hmm.
well, if I don't do things a certain way, or if I don't have a good job or something that would upset my wife, she's going to leave me.
Oh my
And it
gosh.
allowed for both of us to heal, to say, like, I didn't leave you. So apparently, like, doesn't matter what you're doing in life,
Right.
our love transcends that.
Yeah.
And there's a powerful healing that happens when you're able to see and connect to your other decisions. Because
Yep.
remember, these parallel worlds
Mm-hmm.
are not just
Mm-hmm.
random. Whenever you come to a decision in your life, you split,
Yep.
and those lives play out.
Yep.
But so it was a long-winded story, but there very much is a healing through all of this expanded awareness.
Agreed. I agree. That's amazing. I love that. I love that for you. And I love that we're all given that option and that we all have the power to do it, because people probably look at you, Diana, and they say, oh, you're really lucky you get to do that, you know? And I'm not saying you're not, but it's, I feel like if anyone wanted to do those things, it's possible. It's possible. And like you said, we already do. We just don't always remember, right?
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. I tend to go to some really weird places lately. By the way, that's another thing. Like dreams have been so crazy lately. But I go to past lives and or other all other lives. I think everything's happening all at once, so it's like really just kind of
Absolutely.
going to a different layer.
Absolutely.
Um, but I've I I've had so many of my other intuitive friends, and they're like, "You came to see me last night in my dream." Like I go and talk to people that I like work with or that I know, like in the astral realm all the time. Now, do I do this not knowingly? Not really, but it's interesting that I think you and I have had a dream together as well. I was thinking about that today. I'm like, haven't we? We have, haven't we? I don't know. Anyway, yes. I don't know
Yeah.
if you remember, but I
Well,
do.
I definitely feel that there's something to that for sure, because when I first met you, You know,
Hmm.
when I do readings for people, for the listeners that don't know, I first met Marsha. I was doing a live on my Facebook, or on not Facebook, TikTok,
Hmm.
and Marsha had signed up for a reading with me, a private reading. So we got together for the private reading, and as soon as I had connected with Marsha, I just felt this calm, this like I had known you for so long,
Hmm.
like you were a best friend that I had just,
Like, oh my
been
God, there you
talking
are.
to for a long
Yeah.
time. Like there's just this peace and this calm knowing and the safety and the security with you. And I don't get that with people that I read. Usually get a sense of, like nervousness, as we all do because we're going in blind and stuff. But
Hmm.
with you, it was very much this, oh, I already know her.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. Well, that's why I signed up for a reading with you. Not because I needed a reading, but because I'm like, I need to connect with this person. I don't know what's going to come out of it. Maybe at least I'm just going to get a reading. But I knew that that's, I was being pulled and drawn to do it. So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, sorry about that.
Hi.
Um, so yeah, it's kind of amazing how, but I don't know the connection. So it can happen in the astral state, but it can happen in the real world too. I mean, I'm sure we've all met people who are like, "Are you sure I don't know you?" Like, it's just this knowing,
Exactly. Yeah. And you're being given these opportunities to connect. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people, they don't realize that they've been asking for someone in their support system. They're asking for a friend. They're asking for a lover. They're asking for all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And when they get into the orbit of the soul that source is trying to bring to them, to
Yes.
offer them the relationships that they're asking for, they're too afraid or they're too insecure. There's so much of this disgusting mental process like,
Right.
oh, they're not, they're not going to be into me, or, I don't know what this feeling is, but they're not going to feel it either. Like what if they think I'm weird to try to reach out and talk to them and say, hey, like people are coming into your reality, into your orbit divinely. I don't believe in coincidences. Nothing is
Mm-mm.
coincidence. People come into your life for a reason, a season, or a blessing.
Yep.
And we have to feel into that. And I know a lot of people feel into it, but they're afraid to say something because of how they're going to be perceived. It's all fear based,
It
you know.
is.
And
Mhm.
sometimes it's not that people are coming in for you to create and establish this long, strong relationship. Sometimes they're coming in because they need you and they
Yeah.
want a source for you. I've
Hmm.
had moments where I'm at, the store or at a restaurant, and, my server, like there's one gentleman that I went to, it stuck into my mind that as soon as he came to the table, I couldn't hear what the hell he was saying, what his name was, what anything was, because all I kept hearing was connect to this individual and pay them a compliment. They need you. And I was very quiet for a little bit, pretty much like the majority of dinner. I kept hearing
Hmm.
that every time he came over was make the connection. He needs you. And then towards the end, I gave him a compliment. He had his nails painted these like different colors. It was like blue and light blue and stuff like that.
Nice.
I had just made the connection. I was like, I just have to say, one, first off, I love your nails because I'm a nails girl. That's how I
Yeah.
self-care. That's how I
Right.
self. And so I told him, I love your nails, but also I just want to say that you have such a beautiful soul, and do not stop working towards what you are working towards because you're going to do great things. And he immediately got tears in his eyes, started crying, and he said, thank you so much. I really appreciate those words. You have no idea. I needed to hear them today.
Oh.
And I wanted to share that one because it stuck out, but also I hear that it's very important that I share that experience because a lot of times people, especially in today's society, because of the programming and all of the crap,
Hmm.
people neglect the males. There's
Right.
the feminist movement, and there's all of these women that are growing and empowering themselves. And that's a beautiful thing that women are becoming, you know, self-assured and it just empowered.
Hmm.
But sometimes in that process, some of the males get abused and neglected. And we have to understand that the dynamic that they were trying to create for so long, it is us versus them, men versus women, and all of these dynamics that are created to separate us. We disown our own dualities,
Mm,
our masculine and feminine energies,
right, right.
yin and yang. And globally, we need to be that way as well. We will
Yes,
survive so much better as a species. We will thrive so much better as cosmic beings and species of Earth when we embrace this duality and bring the divine masculine and divine feminine together to work together in,
right.
synchronicity and in such a beautiful respect and exchange. And we can't forget about the men on this
No,
earth because
no.
they go through such an immense amount of judgment and uh, you know prejudice and just hatred just for the fact of being a man.
Yeah.
And
And
we,
it's it's so heavy to I see, well, it's light to know that I get to work with more men as they're becoming more open and like being more comfortable with exploring both their feminine and masculine aspects, or to be able to do the healing in a very holistic manner. And this is, I'd say, in the last like 2 years or so, well, maybe since COVID, I don't know, but really last 2 years, I've seen men kind of stepping up to the plate, being more open, wanting to know more, asking for guidance. And it's been such a glorious experience to be able to. I used to feel intimidated by reading for men. I don't know, it's probably my own trauma from my own, past. But now I kind of get excited when, especially when they come in alone without, they just came in, they found me, they just wanted, it's such a glorious feeling to be able to connect with all of them. And yes, um, my husband, and people may have a different point on this, but he said to me the other day, I don't know, he's watching TikTok or something. He said, men are meant to do some things men are supposed to do in this world, and some things women are supposed to do in this world, and that's okay. We don't have to try to be the other thing if that's not what naturally comes to us. Like, men are strong, and it doesn't mean women can't be strong, but men are freaking strong. We need each other, and it's that yin and yang, it's that duality, like you said, is so important. And there's no we don't need to compete. There's no competition.
mhm,
It's interesting though. I might be rambling, but I want you to know that I see that too, that men are so important. And it's important for us to clear um all of that programming again in regards to, like, I have a son and he is 24, and is an exceptional human being. And all of his life, he has had me, which is great, but there's just the programming of the world, in regards to being tough. And I would say probably there's some men in my family that could have been a part of that as well. But he's such a sensitive soul. And we always try to make sure that he knows that is not a weakness. It is okay to be sensitive. He'll be mad at me for saying that. Okay, but I feel like he's very sensitive. We'll just put it at that. And but that makes him very emotionally intelligent and very observant, very, very much very considerate, in regards to other people's feelings. And he's just got a really good balance. He's always trying to find that balance. I think that we do this, don't we? We're never like just, it's always like this. That's how it should be. And so but he does a good job of honing in on that and knowing that's okay. And he's open to his feelings. He's okay with expressing his feelings. Um, he will tell me, Mom, I love you, still. And he will, the other day he told me how important, how much of an inspiration I am to him, that I'm the one that gives him, it gave him that opportunity to see what it is for somebody to have drive and passion, and really, he said, I am so grateful that you're my mom because you've never placed your own expectations upon me. You've always left it open for me to be able to create and do whatever I felt I wanted to do for me. And I'm like, of course, and he's like, no, but you don't understand. A lot of people don't have parents like that. And I was like, yeah, I guess I never really thought about like that because my parents are pretty open as well. Yeah, I was really blessed in that way. But yeah, you're right. Not everyone is able to have that, and that leads into being able to hone in and be sensitive to things like nurturing that. I guess I didn't realize it was genetic, but this runs in my family. This goes back generations. And so I'm really blessed in that way, but not everybody has it that way. And I know that, I guess, from doing readings and stuff and meeting a lot of different people. A lot of people have these expectations that are placed upon them, or like maybe their parents they want to live vicariously through their child, well, I was a doctor, so you have to be a doctor too. Yeah, I don't know. Whatever it is, it's just
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, and
Sensitive.
there's a lot of fear for the kids growing up when they go into early adulthood and they're trying to figure out their place in life, but they're trying to also conform to pleasing their parents'
Mhm.
expectations for them.
Yeah.
Expectations are one of the worst things that has been introduced to humanity. And I think that I know for a lot of the people that I work with, that's
Hmm.
always a main theme that comes up at one point or another during our sessions is that
Hmm.
you need to let go of expectations, period. Other
Correct.
people's expectations are not what's in the best interest for you. Truly, it's what they believe would be in the best interest for them if
Them.
they were in your position. So
Yep.
even though their intentions are coming from a good place, a place of
Hmm.
love, that place of love is actually a place of self-love, a place where they need the healing. So
Hmm.
they're trying to create expectations for where they feel like they needed to have a certain structure or they needed to have a certain direction or a guidance or a telling,
Right.
for their own development. But so
So
I always
true.
tell people you have to let go of expectations. And if you have expectations for other people, especially your children and your spouse, let
Hmm.
it go because that
Absolutely.
sets you up, sets your partners up, sets your children up to disappoint you and fail you.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
And also the expectations some people hold for themselves. Oh, so unrealistic.
oh
I'm
yeah.
like, wait, let's bring it down a couple notches here and like give yourself some self-compassion.
Yeah.
Like, be realistic in regards to what it is that you can create. And also, again, expectations are always going to disappoint you. You're right, Diana. Like, we can't do that. Like, have your goals in mind, but again, going back to the present moment, having no expectations for the outcome is going to be your best bet.
Yeah.
Like, just do what it is in that moment that's going to lead you to that next best moment, which is really being ah when you don't feel like you have any expectations and you just do what it is that you love. I know people don't believe me, but if you do that, it's just going to lead you to more things you love. Like, it's just going to continue to amplify. You're going to find all these supports in people, like you said, that'll just kind of like drop in. You're like, hey, did you need a this and this for that? And you're like, oh my God, I was looking just for that, and it always comes together. That's when you're able to center your energy, ground your energy, trust in the universe.
Mhm.
And honestly, as hippy dippy as this may sound, be love.
Absolutely.
Yep.
No, it's absolutely true. Because I mean, what is it? The kids' cartoon Frozen,
Mm-hmm.
Olaf, the little snowman,
Snowman.
he
Mm-hmm.
says it perfectly. When you don't know what to do, you just do the next best thing. You're never going to know. And that's just the part of our spiritual journeys, our life
Mm-hmm.
journey. You can never predict the future. Like you're never going to know exactly how it is because the future is always in fluctuation based off
Mm-hmm.
of current energy and choices. So that's how you maintain the frequency. People are always asking me, like, how do I manifest the life that I truly want to step into? Because all this shit happens. It pulls me
Yep.
this way, it pulls me that way. And then I end up feeling like I just dropped off. No, the way that you do it is by staying in that same high frequency, by doing the next best thing, not by doing something to try to avoid something, because that's actually stepping into a lower frequency where you're living in fear, embodying actions of fear because of your beliefs and thought process from the foundation of fear. You're stepping into a whole different paradigm there. And then that's when you end up with situations like, well, shit, I can't trust anything because this I remember the intention I put in. I remember the dream that I had, and I stepped forward. I put in so much effort. I did the best I could. And then it just blew up in my face. It didn't blow up in your face. It actually transpired in the way that you were co-creating it, because you were stepping into it from this angle. Instead, we have to step into it from a place of love, like you said, embody love and say, I'm not going to let my fears control my beliefs, my thought process, and my behavior patterns right now. I know what I want to get to, what I want to experience, what I want to transpire in my life. So what is the one step I can take right now that is from a place of love that will help me stay in this frequency? Because there's always two choices that I can either do this or do this. This is louder and stronger because it is from fear. And our egos, they're not our enemies, but they have become a little too strong because we have been leaning so far into self-preservation and survival in this world that we hear our intuition, we hear this other path, and it's beautiful and it's light, but it's not as loud as this one. And this one scares the shit out of us. Whereas this one is hope and it's faith, trust. You have to, even if you have to do it out loud, say to your ego, shut up. You're not helping me. I don't need to survive. I need to thrive. And course correct and go towards the action of love.
And a lot of times people don't realize is they think they have to do to get to that light, but that light's never going to come at a place where you feel efforting, like an effort. It'll be inspired. And some people are like, yeah, I don't know how that's going to work. Well, what I have realized a lot of times when I don't have the next step, this isn't all the time, but this is one big thing for me. I have to ask myself, do I need rest? Do I need to take a moment? Am I burnt out? Do I need to just not think about any of it and just be? Because then the answers will come. And a lot of times it does have to do with the rest part for me, just because I work with it. I don't know, everybody, it may be for everyone, but it's that I need to rest. And then everything falls into place. But you know what? If you don't listen and you don't rest, what usually happens is your body's going to make you in some way, or a situation is going to occur in some way to make you have to rest. So which decision and which path, which one do you choose? I'd rather rest healthy than rest sick, which, literally that's an ongoing lesson for me. Like, I don't get sick very often, but last, I don't know, I would say 6 months, I've been sick like 3 times, like a lot, like for me. And that's just saying, Marsha, slow down, take a moment. It's like Chief said, have fun today, worry tomorrow. And that's literally, something I have to continue to live by. Because that's what's going to lead you to that next best step. A lot of times, not knowing the way is the most adventurous anyway. I did a channeling not too long ago. Chief said something along the lines of, there is nothing better, and home never feels any better than when you get lost on your path and you find your way back on, and then you return home. So look at these times of these detours or these where you're lost as that contrast that you need to be able to really hone in and just enjoy and love when you're home, when you're in that place that you've been seeking and searching for. A lot of times I see people who they were married once, had kind of a karmic relationship where they learned a lot from that person, and maybe that person was a jerk, whatever, right? But when they get with their next partner, they're so appreciative of that next partner. And they said, oh, yeah, I would have never dated him to start. I mean, I wouldn't have, you know what I mean? But because of that first relationship, they could appreciate that second person more. So
Yeah,
that's just one example. I think that's important to realize the universe has a plan, and sometimes we're not in on it. We don't know what the frick's going to happen, right?
exactly. Yeah. And the way that, if we continue to move forward on our journey in the way that we have been showing up every day, where we're leaning into the fear and really letting that drive us instead of leaning,
Mm-hmm.
trusting that the universe is never transpiring against us, that it's
Mm-mm.
always there co-creating for us. You
Right.
know, one of the most powerful things that I heard from Tony Robbins, one of the guys I've been coaching with, is that life doesn't happen to you, life happens for you. And once you understand that and you shift that perspective and belief
Mm-hmm.
system,
Mm-hmm.
then what it's actually doing on an energetic level is shifting you from this state of having to survive, of having to
Mm-hmm.
self preserve, and shifts you into a place of trust, faith, and love.
Yes.
Part of that trust, faith, and love is not focusing on tomorrow, like Chief said, play today, worry tomorrow. Well, why? Because tomorrow never comes. You're always now in the present. So play today,
Mm-hmm.
don't worry. And when you do that, it allows you to go into the natural flow of the universe. And the natural flow of the universe does not look like this. It's not
Mm-mm.
a constant state. It is an ever fluctuating state where at the peaks, we're doing our best. We're really productive. We're thriving. We're going through challenges, but that doesn't mean the challenges are not us actively in thrive.
Mm-hmm.
Have to
Mm-hmm.
have those moments, just like, a kid learning how to do math. You have to add 3 digits sometimes to strengthen your mental skills, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
those peaks. We go through those peaks where we're really productive, and then we have to allow ourselves to gently come down. And when we're in that ebb, we need to take a step back, breathe, meditate, self-soothe, just take a me talks and do all the things that feed your soul and bring you back to alignment so that
Mm-hmm.
you can get back up
And you could
to that
just
flow state.
go.
Then
Right.
you have more energy, you are more charged. So when the flow state comes, boy, you can really get in the flow and
Oh
magic happens.
yeah. I
That's
mean,
when,
magic does.
instead of taking a couple steps, you're like, holy shit, I think I just jumped 10 steps.
Right? It's so true. It's
Mhm.
so true. And if you do it where you're going against the grain, it's going to take you so much longer. That's why I always ask people, which timeline do you choose? It's your choice, you know?
You're
So,
always going to end up in the same place,
mhm,
but one timeline is going to be different, different time and different experiences.
mhm,
So,
mhm.
I think that's a very powerful message for people to hear, because this isn't just about your personal life. This actually goes into a lot of different things. It can be applied to your relationships. It can be applied to your professional world. You
Yep.
know, like, you have to be able to stay mindful and present in the moment and not step into that fear. Right? I
Right.
always said I'm my worst enemy, because I have both
Mhm.
sides just
Yep.
conflicting against each other. And a lot of times when I was living in the fear state, trying to make my decisions based off of what I was afraid to experience and afraid to
Yes.
feel, and I
Yes.
wasn't allowing myself to rest so that
Yep.
I can stay connected to my actual true intentions, my life was a living hell.
I know. Yep. Same.
Mhm.
For sure. And you know what? I just also want to just before we go, want to say this one piece. This is always a work in progress. If you ever get with somebody who says, "Oh, I got it all figured out," man, I don't know if I trust that person, because this is something where until the day we die, actually past that probably. But I'm just saying, like on this earth, in this human form, we will continue to grow. We will continue to learn. We will continue to go through the process and the practices. And I don't think any of us are. no, we're not fully grown or at a place where we could say, all right, I'm good. Yep, I got it all. I'm good. Like, it has to continually be a process. It's something where you're going to have to make a conscious, all your decisions obviously add up to, where you're at. And so just decide to live your best life and do your best every freaking day.
Mm-hmm.
Do your best. And sometimes, you know what, your best might be that you got dressed for the day and brushed your teeth. I mean, I'm just saying every day is going to be different. Maybe that was your best for that day, but it doesn't mean you have to beat yourself up over it.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoy your life, play, and have fun. That's what we're freaking here for, right?
Absolutely.
Overall, that's it. Like, enjoy. And yeah, there's so much more. I could keep talking forever, to be honest.
Absolutely. No, that's a really beautiful segue into it, because I mean, people wonder, what's my purpose? We all have a life purpose, we all have a
Mhm.
soul purpose,
Well,
but the
sure.
essential cosmic purpose is experience and expansion. So don't be afraid to live and just
Mhm.
experience just for the sake of being. Sometimes all you have to do is just be.
It is, and I just channeled this the other day, and I think this is so important because I hadn't really relevantly thought about this, but what I heard is our um our contribution to this world isn't something that's always going to be outwardly given. Um, if we were on our couch and reading a book, doing a puzzle, and it was just us, we are still expanding and putting our energy out into the world. And so even if you're in a good state, but you're like, but I'm not really doing anything, that's not true because we're all connected. You are doing something. And so there'll be moments where we have to go within. We have to be in solitude, or we maybe sometimes, I don't know about you, but I prefer to be kind of in that hermit mode at times. And I know that that's still helpful to others, especially like if we're recharging our battery to go, like you said, full force out there and do, whatever it is that we plan to do. So I think it's just about, I just wanted to also add in that part about giving yourself grace and knowing that your contribution doesn't always have to be like this big, huge thing and big purpose all the time. So, and it is a purpose. The purpose is living. So there you go.
Absolutely. That's such a beautiful message.
Mhm.
How would people who want to have a service done through you, whether it's a mediumship reading or coaching services, how can they reach you? Can you just give us, your final thoughts and tell us anything that will allow them to connect with you?
Sure. So you can find me on Facebook and Instagram. I think it's My Nika Life. My Nika, Mynika Life, Life. And also my website is mynikalife.com. Nika is a derivative of victorious and truthful. So that's, I don't know, the name came to me. It's part of my heritage. My mom's last name's Nikolic. So anyway, that's because some people are like, why is it named that? That's why. Yeah.
It's beautiful. I love it.
Mhm.
And, I really appreciate you connecting with me today and having these wonderful conversations and exchanges. And I hope it's provided a lot of people the insight and the clarity that they needed for something that they might be going through in their life. And also for those that might be on the fence because they hear the dripping of their soul speaking to them, that they need to connect. They need
Mm-hmm.
to get in touch with you so that they can connect with ancestors on the other side for their own healing and for their own future development and growth, but also so that they can expand into this full cosmic reality and existence that they truly are,
Of
which
course.
help them go from a state of fragmentation to finding their wholeness. And it's a very beautiful gift that you're offering to people. And I really appreciate
I
having met
appreciate
you and connecting with you. And I hope that, we'll have you on for many more conversations because I
Oh, I'd
just love
love it.
sitting and having
I would
conversations.
love to, yes. And I do have like online courses and mentorship programs and stuff like that too. So it goes beyond, and I keep expanding and I keep coming up with new stuff. So I would love that. If anything, become a part of my newsletter. So just go on my website and sign up for my newsletter so you know what's coming up. Right.
Yeah. And her
Yeah.
newsletters are really beautiful. There's so much information there. There's a lot of like weekly energy readings and
Yep.
updates and all that. So it's a really good source. Like I don't like signing up for people's stuff because I get so inundated with information that I don't want or I don't need.
Right.
But Marsha's messages and her newsletters have always been ones that I follow because they actually have good information in there that pertain to my day and
Yay.
my week. And it's just the insights that she gives are really meaningful. And they
Oh,
actually do
thanks.
help not just on an energetic and spiritual level, but there's also a really good like practical connection and
For
stuff
sure.
that I feel into my life. So I appreciate
Yes.
you for
Well,
that.
thank
But
you. Yeah, I do the weekly wisdom wellness newsletter, and it's just basically a prediction for the week. And then usually sometimes I'll add on things that I'm doing. So, yeah, simple. I don't like to read too much in a newsletter either. I'm like, oh my God, like it's too much. But no, so that's why I just keep it simple, stupid, right? All right.
exactly.
Okay,
But
well, you guys take care. I love you so much. I hope I'm wishing and I'm praying for everybody to just have the most glorious week, year, life. Anyway, I can't wait to see you again, Diana.
now that was incredibly powerful. I hope that you all enjoyed listening to my conversation with Marsha. We will have her on again. She's such a beautiful soul. And the messages that she has to share are really powerful and profound. When I gave her a reading after she had, she found me on my TikTok, um, she unexpectedly, at the end of my reading for her, gave me a medium reading because she said that someone was coming through and they, very much wanted to connect, and it ended up being my grandmother. She said that I had a grandmother just pass away recently who was like a mother figure to me, and that was very accurate and very true. Again, she had never known me before, um, but my grandmother had just passed away very recently, and she told me certain distinguishing features and facts about my grandmother's character, the things like how she looked, the things that were really meaningful and important to her. And the messages that she delivered was really beautiful and something that I needed because, I had a lot of sadness about her departure from this world. And just the transformational shifts that one can get through these connections are so, in a subtle way, very profound. And we have to understand that our worlds aren't separate. They are always connected and intertwined, and our loved ones are always there by our sides, helping us when we need help. And you know, they can connect and we can connect with them through the help of people who have obsessed over being the medium, being the telephone to make these connections possible. So, if you want to get a mediumship reading or life coaching session through Marsha, you can go, like she said, to her website, mynikalife.com, and schedule a session with her. And, you won't regret it. She's a wonderful medium and a wonderful person to connect with. And thank you so much for listening. And for those of you who are watching this, thank you for watching. And we look forward to connecting on the next session. I hope you all have a beautiful day. We'll see you later.